Hi, it's me, Bob. So, I haven't updated this Patreon video in a while because, well, for a long time my situation was very much in flux, and it wasn't really possible to tell how often I'd need to start updating if I started updating. However, thanks in large part to the, for lack of a better word, cushion provided by this Patreon, I have been able to rebuild my personal brand as an independent content creator and become regularly employed in, as of this recording, 2 brand new ventures, so thank you very much for that. As such, there have been a lot of questions about what it is my patrons are actually funding versus what I'm getting paid to do otherwise. And you're right, I absolutely owe it to patrons and potential patrons to be right up front about what goes where. After all, things are tough all over, and it's very reasonable for some of you to be thinking, hey, now that Bob has a regular job again, does he really need my patronage? So I wanted to take this opportunity to lay out for both old and new patrons and prospective patrons what it is I do, who I am, what this Patreon is for, and what I want it to be doing going forward. So here we go, starting with the introductions, or reintroductions as it were. My name is Bob Chipman. I am a film critic, writer, video producer, and internet video gaming personality. Over the course of my career, I've created, produced, and hosted popular series like Escape to the Movies, The Big Picture, In Bob We Trust, The Game OVERTHINKER, along with writing weekly columns like Moviebob Intermission and Moviebob High Definition, which was about television. Currently, I am now the regular weekly film critic for Geek.com, where I publish weekly reviews of new release movies in both text and video form. I'm also a writer for Screen Rant, where I cover entertainment news and publish in-depth lists and articles. Now, since both of those outlets pay me for my work, you generally aren't going to see links to it posted to this Patreon page, because it clutters things up and it's not funded by such. Though obviously I would encourage fans and patrons to please bookmark links to both of those sites and visit them as regularly as possible. So then, what am I still doing on Patreon? Here's the deal, folks. Do I have jobs? I do. Do I enjoy them? Absolutely I do. But there's a lot more that I'm doing, would like to do, and would like to do more of in terms of creative output. And creating, launching, cultivating, and promoting those projects is what the Moviebob Patreon is always for. Not only in terms of funding these projects, but being able to fill the financial gaps that can occur when working on said projects cuts into the time that might otherwise have been used for paid work. As such, contributions to the Moviebob Patreon are currently primarily enabling the making of 2 original independent web series. The first is a revived version of In Bob We Trust, a weekly pop culture grab bag show that is effectively a successor of sorts to The Big Picture. You can watch all of those episodes that already exist at this link, and if you'd like to see that series continue, I advise you to please consider becoming a patron, ask your friends and colleagues to become patrons, and also to please let me say thank you if you already are a patron. Thanks, I couldn't have done it without you. The Moviebob Patreon also supports Really That Good, my in-depth movie analysis series. This is a production that I am really proud of, and the response to it has been really enthusiastic. You can check out the existing episodes of that at this link, but the basic idea is to take the kind of established classic movies that we just sort of absorb as good by cultural osmosis and look at them deeper, because we don't necessarily stop and think in terms of how good they actually are. As a result, you can often find yourself at a loss when trying to explain why you love some of your favorite movies. Honestly, folks, of everything that I do, I really feel like Really That Good is the series that most fills a genuine cultural need, if I may be so bold as to suggest that. But it's also the most labor-intensive, as the most episodes are almost 40 minutes long or more and require full scripts, extensive analysis, and many hours of video editing. And this Patreon largely makes the difference as to whether or not I'm able to keep producing it. Now, previous episodes have thus far included the original Ghostbusters, Die Hard, A Christmas Story, the original Superman, Spider-Man 1 and 2, National Lampoon's Vacation, and The Avengers. The next planned episode will feature Titanic, which is currently in production and is regrettably overdue. In fact, that's in large part the reason I decided that this Patreon page could use a signal boost. Now, after Titanic, the next 2 episodes planned on my Really That Good to-do list are The Matrix and the animated Transformers movie. No, I'm not kidding about that second one, and I'd really like to make both of those happen, and if we can get this Patreon back up to where things are a little more secure on this end, I absolutely believe they still can. Now, I've also published 8 books, which include the nonfiction gaming book Super Mario Bros. 3 Brick by Brick, which you can purchase from Fangamer at this link right here in both print and ebook form, and I also have 7 volumes of collected work arranged by genre and available as ebooks from Lulu, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and on iBooks. Now, while I absolutely do make money off the sales of those books, what the Moviebob Patreon enabled me to do was have the time necessary to assemble them and allowed me to sell them at a reasonable price. I really don't like to overcharge for anything I do. It just doesn't feel good. You can find links to all those books in various formats in the information below this video, by the way. So yeah, that's what your patronage is supporting right now. But what might the future hold? Well, for starters, I'd very much like to bring back my video game series, The Game Overthinker, in a new form. You can watch the original show at the link right here, but my hope for a possible comeback would be not to focus on regularly scheduled short episodes, but rather a more in-depth look at games culture when the need arises. I'd also like to toy with the idea of bringing back original series characters like Throwback and Broseph to do a series of short episodes about classic games. I think that would be an interesting experiment to try out. Speaking of smaller series, I'm also considering a new test series that would spin off from Really That Good. Tentatively titled Good Enough Movies, or GEM, it would feature short-form episodes, 5 minutes or less in length really, dedicated to overlooked or underappreciated films that might not be standout classics that you do a Really That Good episode about, but deserve a look anyway. I think that would be interesting. Also, now I'm not making a promise on this one just so I'm clear, but I have heard the requests that a lot of people have said, and I'm warming up to the idea of doing a Really That Bad one-time episode for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Not because I want to get in on the whole cinema sins negativity business that the rest of the internet is kind of drowning in. In fact, I created Really That Good as a curative to that, but that particular film was so bad in such a fascinating way, I think it might actually benefit from a Really That Good level deconstruction. Is that something that would be of interest to my patrons? Please, by all means, let me know. And that's not all. I'm also in the very early unofficial planning stages for another gaming book, a nonfiction novel, short and feature-length narrative film projects, and more, all of which the Moviebob Patreon will be part of nudging into production. So, yes, that would be the state of and future plans for the Moviebob Patreon. Otherwise, the basic infrastructure has not changed, including the goals. Ideally, I'd like to see it get back to or above the goal, but every little bit helps. Folks, I'll be honest, I am coming out of a tough couple of years, and you fans who've contributed and continue to contribute to this Patreon are a huge reason why I've been able to turn things around and continue producing content this whole time. I can never thank you enough. I feel deeply, deeply grateful for every contribution that you make, continue to make, and encourage others to make, and, you know, the only way I can honestly think of to even begin thanking you is to continue doing the best I can to bring you the content that you want. So, thank you for your time, thank you for your patronage, let's get those numbers climbing back up and see what kind of great things that we can make happen together. Thank you once again.